Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I don't know where you are in the world, but welcome to another episode of Jam Talk. My name is Rachel Dolcine, and I am the Task Force Chair for the Jamaica Diaspora Worldwide Organization Task Force. For this particular conversation, we're going to say JD Watt because that is way too much, way too much to be saying throughout this particular interview. And JamTalks are weekly conversations that I have with organizations throughout the diaspora who are doing work for the betterment of folks in Jamaica and abroad. So I am really excited about this particular initiative that JD Watt is sponsoring because I have met some pretty amazing folks who are doing some work, and the list of folks that I've yet to interview, I'm also excited about that because they look like there's some pretty amazing folks as well. So this particular Jam Talk is going to be a little different because I'm going to be on the hot seat. So I actually started an organization, and we will get to that in a bit. I actually started an organization, and we do work in Jamaica. Obviously, I could not interview myself because then I would think that I may not be all there. So I've invited my good friend Angelica Brooks, and she's also a board member of the organization I started, and she's also a JDTAN task force member as well. So I've invited my good friend Angelica to join me for this particular episode of Jam Talks as we talk about the Joseph and Vera Douglas Family Foundation, which is the organization I started to do work in Jamaica. So Angelica, welcome, 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 and thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everybody.
All right, so let's get right to it because we only got 30 minutes to kind of chat out, have this chat and have folks learn about what JVDFF, and that's what we're going to say, Joseph and Vera Douglas Family Foundation. So we'll say JVDFF, meaning that, and then JD Watt, meaning the organization that's a part of JDTAN. So Angelica, so tell me why did you decide to become a board member of JVDFF? Like, what drew you to JVDFF?
Well, what drew me to JVDFF was because, one, we had already connected. So I already knew I was sold on that because you're a great person. And then also because I wanted to be a part of an organization that was about making a difference in those areas where different countries, they may be lacking resources or, not as current as the times are here in the US. So I've always wanted to have an impact in different countries and different areas. And I just kind of fell into JVDFF.
Right. So before we even get any deeper into this conversation, you've actually made a really great segue into letting folks know, like, what is JVDFF? Like, what do we do and where do we do it? So I started JVDFF in honor of my grandparents, Joseph and Vera Douglas. They're from Petersfield, which is in Westmoreland. Big up Petersfield, big up Westmoreland. So they were from Petersfield, Bassett Walk to be exact, in Petersfield. And my grandmother raised me until I was about 5 when I came to the US. But when I was growing up, I heard so many stories about my grandparents. Unfortunately, my grandfather was murdered many, many years before I was born. And my grandmother was left with about 16 kids that she had to raise on her own. Neither one of them had very much education. My grandmother was a housewife and my grandfather was a farmer. But one of the things that I heard over and over when I was growing up was the generous heart of both of my grandparents. So my grandfather, when he would grow his crops, he would distribute them in this order. He would have the poorest in the community. Now, mind you, my grandparents were not rich. They were by all standards extremely poor. Oh, wow. But my grandfather would have folks in the community, so single mothers, elderly, folks who were really struggling, much worse than they were. He would have them come and take what they needed. He would give to the church and then he would take home. That's the order in which he would do things. And my aunts and uncles, my mom, my cousins who were growing up in the yard at that time said they never went hungry. So it's a huge family.
Wow.
I never went hungry. And so that was the philosophy by which my grandmother and my grandfather lived. And so that really impressed on me from a very young age. And so leaving Jamaica, this country, being in the US, has provided me with some amazing opportunities for education, amazing opportunities to make something of myself. And so I always knew from I was very young that I wanted to do something to give back to Jamaica. And I wanted to do it in memory of my grandparents. So that's how JVDFF got started. And we do work in health and wellness, which gender-based violence and women's wellness. We do education, and we do women entrepreneurship training. So those are the 3 areas that we focus on. So just a little bit of background.
Yes.
So
what exactly is the mission? What's the mission of JVDFF?
So we really want to provide resources that will allow the women and their families in Petersfield to thrive. Because I think that when a woman is thriving, and it's a fact that when she's thriving, when she's self-sufficient, like it shifts communities.
Yes.
When women are empowered to be able to take care of themselves, take care of their families. This does not mean without a man, or you don't need a man. That's not what this means at all. Right. This just means that for me as a woman, I'm empowered to feel that I can take care of myself. I'm confident. I'm healthy, both mentally and physically. I know how to manage money. I know how to make money. So almost like a Proverbs 31 woman, right? Even though we're not necessarily a Christian organization, but that Proverbs 31 woman, my grandmother was left with 16 kids and was able to raise them, right? Because she was self-sufficient. She knew how to be self-sufficient. She was confident.
Yes.
She had a healthy heart, not just, not meaning like a physical, but her, you know what I mean? Her heart.
Her personality.
Right? So really our mission boils down to that. We want to be able to help women and their families live thriving lives, healthy lives, and become self-sufficient.
Really. Now, what would you say are some of the points that you have, or what are some of the things that you have going on in the organization? Like, what are some of the little projects,
Oh, wow, my goodness.
Tidbits. We can't be here all night.
I know, we could be here for hours. So I'm just going to touch on 2 that for me is, I think, because we've been doing so much, but the 2 that I think right now that are a priority for us is, 1, we are really partnering with organizations in Jamaica on the ground to address this gender-based violence issue that's happening in Jamaica. And so the rate at which women and girls are being not just killed, but also hurt and maimed due to gender-based violence, or just due to women feeling unsafe, right? That the value of a woman and men can feel that they can do and say anything to a woman, right? Without reprisal. And so one of the things that we are working on in partnership is to really create programs that can help to support empowering women so that they feel safe, that they feel confident, that they feel that they are able to care for themselves in a variety of ways, whether that's entrepreneurship, whether that's being safe, walking the street, or knowing where to go if they need help, if they're in a violent relationship. So that's one. The second project that I'm really excited about is, so I attended Petersfield Primary and Infant School when I was in Jamaica. So this is many, many years ago. And they never had a playground at the school. And so we are actually going to build a playground. We're going to gift them a playground in 2022, God willing, and COVID lets up. We'll be in Jamaica, and we have a playground project build that we are working on right now. We're raising money. We need to raise $20,000 for that project. At this point in time, between pledges and what we've raised, we're almost at the $10,000 mark. So I am very excited. Yeah, excited about that. But we're building up not just a playground, but we're also going to have game tables so the kids can play checkers, they can play chess, or they can just sit and read. We're going to have benches, and the tables are going to have umbrellas because Jamaica gets hot outside.
Yes.
And they're also going to have a peace garden. But this garden is not just going to be where kids will learn how to grow beautiful flowers and plants, but they will also learn how to grow food. So Jamaica is an
Oh,
agriculture country. And so these little itty bitty babies are going to learn from very young how to raise food and how that's important to the wellness of the community, because we know natural food is obviously the best
the
option.
best.
Best
Mhm.
option. And it's the most sustainable option, right? Because we know that supermarkets and prices of food can be so expensive. So if we can grow some of what
Yes.
we eat, we'll not only be healthier, but when we talk about self-sustaining, right, we can
Yes.
have self-sustaining communities as well. So those are the two projects that are priority right now for us that we are working on.
Awesome. So which one of those would you, or well, actually, overall with JVDFF, would you say is your greatest accomplishment or the greatest accomplishment of the organization?
Oh, wow. I think is the organization's ability to adapt. Every
Mhm.
year since we've started, and we started in 2013. Our first trip was 2014. So this would have been trip number 8 if we've been able to go to Jamaica this year. So each year,
Wow.
2014, we have taken a 10-day trip to Jamaica, to the Peninsular community to do a project. And every single year it's been different because we were trying to figure out where do we fit in, what the needs are, what do we do? And so
Mhm.
every year we did a different project. And every year we had a whole new set of challenges for us. But our ability, our tenacity that we didn't give up, and our ability to really look at what we did well, look at what we didn't do well, and then make the changes and the adjustments. And so those trips that we've taken and the relationships that we've built has allowed us to get to where we are now, where we clearly know what our focus areas are, what we want to focus on. So I would say that's really, our greatest accomplishment. And it's greatly due to the board. We've had several different boards, different folk, because, boards will change.
Right,
It's always
right,
gonna
of
be the
course.
same. But for every season that we've been in, that board that's been active during that season has been really vital in helping us to move forward and in helping us to figure out where we belong, what we do well,
Yes.
what we should continue to do. And so, our staying power, tenacity, I really see us lasting long into the future. And yeah, I'm excited about that.
So with all of those things that are on the great side, what would you say would be one of the challenges within the organization, per se?
Boy. My goodness. And I'm gonna go back to the same thing that has made us strong, our board, I think,
Okay.
is the same thing in areas where we've had some challenges. Anytime that you have a group of people who are getting together for, even if the cause, a common cause, getting together, there will always be bumps along the way. And so I
Right.
think that the challenges we've had just in our leadership, which is our board, I think points to challenges that many other organizations will have, for example, around communication, around staying committed, because people's lives change. Their
Yes.
lives change.
Yes.
And sometimes, it's not that the heart has changed. They really still want to be committed. They still want to help do the work, but their ability and their commitment has changed. And so being able to communicate that to the board and not feel like I'm letting the board down or letting down the organization.
Right.
That has been one of the struggles.
Yes.
Our particular board is we have some amazing people, but sometimes they're life changers, and it's hard for them to communicate. My life has changed, so I can't be as active. I can't be as committed,
Right.
As I would like to be. So I would say right now, an ongoing challenge for us has definitely been being able to consistently build a board that communication, consistency and commitment of time to what we're doing. But we're still a baby organization. We're only about 8 or 9 years old, so we're still pretty young. We're not even a teenager yet. So I'm hoping that the challenges that we're having in those areas will be a place where 5 years from now we'll show our biggest growth, our strongest growth, in just really being able to overcome that particular challenge.
Absolutely. And what would you say, I guess, would be one of the characteristics you would tell another nonprofit organization, with everything that you've learned from the greatest accomplishments to the challenges? What would be something, a piece of advice you would give another startup organization that's maybe going through some things?
Oh boy, that's a really great question. And because I'm a licensed nonprofit consultant, I'm like, okay, Rachel, take off the consultant hat and put on the reality. This is the kind of lived experience. So one of the things I would definitely tell a new organization that is just starting or is just as young as ours is to not sweat the small stuff. Pick your battles, because in the nonprofit world, there are so many.
Yes.
There's lots of battles to be fought, between battles among yourselves as an organization, battles from the outside, people having their own personal things that they go through.
Yes.
Don't sweat the small stuff. There's so much. I always say we have bigger fish to fry.
That's right.
And clearly understanding what that bigger fish is, which really is ties to the mission. If it's not going to move our mission forward, if it's not going to be of benefit to the people that we're serving, then it's not worth us spending time and energy going back and forth about it.
That's right.
Or getting in our feelings about it. So it would definitely be, don't sweat the small stuff, because there's going to be so many small stuff. And pick your battles. This is exhausting work. Everything should not be a fight. There are times when I've had to say, I'm going to step back and I'm going to remove myself, or I'm not going to keep going back and forth about this, meaning me personally, right?
Right.
Situation, because it's just taking so much out of you.
Yes.
So really knowing for your own well-being and for the well-being of the organization, what battles do you fight?
That's right.
And what battles do you say, this is not a battle for me, this is a spat, and I'm not going to give my energy to it, and knowing the difference between the two and being able to walk away when you need to.
Awesome. Well, being a leader in the organization as the president, what is, I guess, one thing you have learned?
Oh boy, I've learned a lot about myself. When I started JDTAN, I had been in the nonprofit sector already for almost 2 decades, right?
Wow.
A long time. And I had been in leadership positions for most of my nonprofit career. And so for me, when I started JDTAN, I felt pretty strong as a leader, like pretty confident as a leader. But I learned, from leading this organization, that there was so much more I needed to learn, and so much more growing that I needed to do.
Yes.
My emotional intelligence has improved substantially since being a leader of this organization. And so I think for me, as a leader, it's been my own personal growth and understanding that if I am not constantly growing, constantly checking myself, constantly doing self-assessment,
yes,
constantly open to criticism, open to someone saying, I didn't like that, I didn't like the way you spoke to me, and this is why, really, really honestly, constantly being self-aware, I don't think I would have been doing this long. Because
and taking time out for yourself.
Yes.
Gotta take, oh Lord.
You already know me. I struggle with that. I'm always on 1,000. I'm always like, go, 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 go.
Uh-huh.
Oh my goodness. But yes, so all that about myself, that I am not Superwoman. And I don't want to be Superwoman.
Yes.
And the Superwoman syndrome, I no longer claim it. I don't want it. And so really understanding myself in all capacities, my mental health, my physical health, my spiritual health, and then what I bring to the table as a person, that for me has been, I think, the lesson for me personally as a leader is really the importance of understanding myself.
Awesome. And so what would you say to, I guess, let's just take a little turn, like if other Jamaicans or other worldwide, if they want to get involved, or even in Jamaica, how would they go about that? How would they become involved and support JDTAN?
So we actually have a website. So you can check us out at www.jvdffoundation.org. And as I say every week, if you're watching us on YouTube, then the information will be below this video. If you're watching this on Facebook, the information will be above this video. So we actually have a website where you can check out the work that we're doing, as well as you can make a donation if you'd like. We also have a Facebook page, so Joseph and Vera Douglas Family Foundation. You can like our page. We're also on Instagram at JVD Foundation, and you can follow us on Instagram as well. And that's where you can really learn about what we are doing. If you're interested in learning about our volunteer opportunities or even joining our board, right now we are doing board recruiting to start in the fall for a new board in the fall. So if you feel like this is an organization, after you check us out, that you think you'd be interested in learning more about how you can contribute your time, your resources by volunteering or being on our board or being on a committee, then you can email me at JVD. You can email us, not me, jvdfoundation@gmail.com. And that information will also be in the YouTube video at the bottom and at the top if you are watching us on Facebook. We always welcome any assistance that we can get. We are very strategic though about our volunteers. We're strategic about our board members because we have goals. We have very strategic goals where we want to reach. And so we're always looking for folks who fit into what we need and fit into our mission and our the culture that we're cultivating as an organization.
Okay, and so since we're on the JD Watt channel, we'll just talk a little bit about the importance that you feel that some of the JD Watt members, get involved with the organization or help contribute.
Sure. So, one of the reasons why I joined JDTAN was because I feel that I have an obligation to give back to the land of my birth. I wasn't sure what that was going to look like when I was a little girl, but as I became an adult and came into my own, I was clear on what that was. I think it's important. I think it's important that Jamaicans, wherever you live in the world, that you find a way to give back. It can be through JDTAN, meaning you join a task force. We have about, I think it's 13 different task forces.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go to www.jdtan.org, you'll see all the task forces that we have, and you can join any of them, right? So even if it's just doing that, you're joining a task force, right, and you are actively becoming involved in that task force by lending your skills, your expertise, your time to the work that's being done. I think the other way you can get involved is through organizations like JVDFF and some of the other organizations that I've been interviewing and I have been interviewing, is to put your money where your mouth is, right? Is to make a financial contribution to an organization that's doing work in Jamaica. I know so many Jamaicans, even in my own family, who've said they're never going to go back to Jamaica for a variety of reasons. And their reasons are their reasons. But just because you won't go back doesn't mean that you should not be investing in some way in the future of Jamaica. So whether it's children, whether it's healthcare, whether it's women, whether it's communities, it does not matter what it is. My mom used to tell us, don't curse where you're coming from, right? Because where you're coming from has made you who you are. And so even if you left Jamaica when you were young, or you left Jamaica when you were much older, Jamaica was where you were born and who created and formed you. And it's important to remember that and not forget the land of your birth. And that there are children, there are generations that are still there that need the investment from the global Jamaican community. And so that's why I think it's really important to give back. That's why I give back, not just in time, but in putting my money where my mouth is and investing in not just JVDFF, but if there are other organizations that are doing work, that I also donate what I can to help that work continue. So that's why I think it's important.
Awesome. Well, I think we've learned so much about JVDFF and where it's going, where it is, and where it started from.
Yeah, and I mean, since I got you here, and I think it would be great for folks to learn a little bit more about you, because you are an amazing individual too, who has so much going on. So one of my favorite things with Angelica is we learned that we have actually a similar journey to our careers. So Angelica started out as a preschool teacher. Preschool teacher.
Yes.
I started out my career working before and after schools. I was working with children, but I had an interest in criminal justice. So my undergrad degree is actually in deviant behavior and social control from John Jay College of Criminal Justice, because I wanted to be an FBI profiler for violent juveniles.
The best job ever.
Right? I wanted to do that. And then life happened. And I was like, oh yeah, no, Rachel can't handle what that really is about. So I then went full-time into nonprofit, and most of my nonprofit career has been in childcare and managing huge childcare programs and huge staff and huge budgets. On the flip side, Angelica started out as a preschool teacher and is now fully engrossed in the criminal justice field.
Yes.
So I want you to talk a little bit, Angelica, about that background and how that background is actually helping JVDFF specifically, and JDTAN specifically, in the areas of crime, justice, and gender-based violence.
So my experience is I pretty much have a wealth of experience in the criminal justice realm, working in investigations and forensics. So with that, I kind of took that and went into the private investigation field because I wanted to be able to dedicate more time to helping families out and giving back the experience that I learned and that I'm very passionate about. So with JVDFF, I'm very passionate about the gender-based violence. So being able to help to formulate a program that's going to benefit women everywhere, where, especially in Jamaica, where they can just, defend themselves and just to be able to feel like they can protect themselves should any dangerous situation arise, is just something I find just amazing, because not everybody has access to those resources, and being able to provide those resources to women in poverty, to women, even women that are able to take care of themselves, I think it's very important skill set that all females should have, and not just on the basis of self-defense, moves, but also like just understanding gender-based violence and understanding the different ways to protect yourself, things to look out for, things to be mindful of is very important for a woman of any age to do, to know. So that's why I'm very passionate about the work that I do at JVDFF, especially when it comes to women gender-based violence. When it comes to JDTAN, or yes, JDTAN, make sure I'm saying that right. Being able to give courses and information within the criminal justice realm to expand the citizens' knowledge of maybe different laws they might not have known about that are in Jamaica, educating on, catching them up to date on current events or current procedures that are taking place in the US that could be beneficial to Jamaica, I think is very good. And just being able to provide sound advice or curriculum-based courses to enhance some of the issues that are going on in Jamaica when it comes to violence and the government.
And I think one of the other things that you are very passionate about, which you have expertise and experience in, is the whole human trafficking, and
yes,
how that disproportionately affects it disproportionately affects poorer communities, but it also,
yes.
Countries that have a high tourism, countries or states for the U.S. that are what they call harbor states, so states that have access to water, and countries surrounded by water, where just the human trafficking that occurs both in Jamaica and then abroad. That's one of the other things that I'm so excited that you're a member of, not just the JVDFF team, but the JDTAN team, and really bringing the expertise around human trafficking and what that looks like, because there's so much misconception.
There is, and even with countries like Jamaica where there is some poverty, there's so many times when, like, as women, it's like, oh, well, this is an opportunity for you to get a job, or, opportunity. I mean, who wouldn't want to, some people want to leave and come to the US. Some people want to leave and go to different countries. I mean, somebody who's down and out and in poverty, female, male, and they are just going through some things, and you just flash an opportunity. I mean, human trafficking, the opportunity is like endless in countries like that. So being able to be a voice to be like, these are the things you need to look out for, because this is not always gold, you know, this is not always what you think it is. Being able, so that they're able to decipher on their own to avoid those situations is something I look forward to.
And that's really what, you know, JDTAN, and that's really what we want to do for women, is to provide this really well-rounded just knowledge and information. Because not every woman is in a violent relationship at all.
No.
You know, so providing them with this information and resources around anything that's related to the wellness and safety of women.
Yes.
And we know that human trafficking, you know, includes, and I've learned some stuff from you, sex trafficking, work trafficking for work, trafficking for body parts, right? So it's not just, normally we hear this whole sex trafficking and people equate it with human trafficking, but human trafficking is this broad category, and part of human trafficking is all these other ways that folks are trafficked, and it's not just sexual. You traffic for other types of reasons, and they all fall under human trafficking as well.
Right. And just the self-defense alone is not necessarily, you know, has to be anything in a relationship. It's like when you're being attacked, or when you're being potentially raped, or, you know, human trafficked. Being able to get yourself out of that situation is very important, especially where it's prominent. You know, it's prominent in Jamaica. So,
and it's really just empowering women, once again, self-sufficiency. It does not mean, and I want to say it again, it does not mean, you know, you don't need a man, or it's a world where we don't have men. That's not what this is about at all. But self-sufficiency just means that I am walking on the street on my own, running an errand or on a lunch break, and I feel I have skills and I have knowledge and I have expertise, so I can confidently walk the streets and know that if something comes up, I at least have some knowledge and information to be able to protect myself.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Or I have knowledge and information, so if I see a situation, I can say, this doesn't sound right.
Right.
I know what questions to ask of folks. Or if I overhear something, you know, I can be an asset or a warning to another woman, right?
That's right.
So it's not just necessarily, you know, women who are in violent relationships, but just a woman, period. And being able to empower women so they know more when it comes to their own well-being, and their own safety.
That's right. I agree.
So I am definitely, I mean, I'm honored and pleased to have you as a member of our board. And I know JDTAN is absolutely blessed to have you as a task force member with the expertise and experience that you have. Thank you so very much for joining me.
Yes, of course. Anytime.
For this session of Jam Talk. And for those of you who are watching, thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Jam Talk. I enjoy these weekly Jam Talks, and I hope that you join us next week for another episode of Jam Talk. I will be back without Angelica, but I'll be back next week with another organization who is doing amazing work in Jamaica or abroad that I want you to know about, because we want you to be able to support as many organizations as you can. So hope you are having a great week, and I will see you next week for another Jam Talk. Bye.